From here starts the speaking test.
Okay.
This is the speaking mock test of the International English Language Testing System taking place online in Ross IELTS Academy. The candidate is Anna. The candidate number is 01313458. The examiner is Luisa Meinusch. Examiner number 443577. Good afternoon. My name is Luisa. Would you please tell me your full name?
Oh, hi, good afternoon. I'm Ana Luisa de Figueiredo Dutra Pereira.
And can I see your identification, please? Okay, thank you. Then let's get started with part 1. In the first part of the exam, I will ask you some personal questions. Let's talk about your hometown. Do you like your hometown?
Yeah, I do. I moved to Ireland. Now I live in Ireland. I really like there. Loads of things to do. It's a big city in Brazil. So yeah, I do like it.
Is your hometown big or small?
It's huge comparing to Ireland, for example. It's almost 3 million people. So it's really big. It's not the capital of Brazil, but it's a big city.
Do you think you'll continue living there for a long time?
No, since I already moved away. As I said before, I'm living in Ireland, so I'm not living there anymore, and I don't intend to get back.
Now let's talk about cities. Have you ever lived in a city?
Sorry, I didn't understand.
I can repeat. Can you hear me now? Is that fine?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll talk about cities now. So have you
City.
ever lived in a city?
In a city, yeah. Like my hometown, it's a big city, so yeah. And even here in Ireland, it's a city too.
What do you enjoy most about living in the city?
And I think everything that you can do it, like you have plenty of things to do in a big city that you don't have in a town. Like I don't know, for shoppings and cinemas and parks and even people. I like seeing people, so it's great when you live in a city. It's busy. I like busy places.
What city would you like to live in the future?
London, definitely London. I'm planning to go there maybe in 3 years, something like that.
And why is that?
Oh, I don't know. Since I was small or as a child, I'd like to study there. But I couldn't afford, so I came to Ireland. But I still plan to go there. I don't know. It's a child's dream. Maybe for all the history.
Now let's move on to talk about new activities. Do you like to try new activities?
Yes, I do. But there's been a long time that I don't try anything new.
What activities would you like to try?
Playing piano. It's something that actually I've started when I was small, but smaller, but I didn't keep it up. So I'd like to get back and really keep it.
Why are some people afraid of trying new things?
I think everything that it's new, it's a little bit scaring. I think we are afraid of new things. You feel uncomfortable. I don't know. It's your uncomfortable zone.
Okay, thank you. That's it for part 1. Now we can move on to part 2.
Okay.
So in part 2, I will give you a card with a topic, and then you will have to talk about this topic for 2 minutes. You have 1 minute to think about what you're going to say, and you can make some notes to help if you wish. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Great, then I will share my screen so you can see your cue cards. Great. So you should talk about a person in your life with a good sense of humor. Your 1 minute of preparation starts now.
Okay.
All right, your 1 minute is over. You may start speaking now.
Okay. So definitely the first person who came to my mind was my housemate and friend, Marcel. I think he's the funniest person that I ever met. He's Brazilian as well. He's from northern Brazil, so he has a different accent and vocabulary. He has some slangs and things that he says that makes he funny, but definitely he has the ability to get the best of all the situation, and he makes fun about everything. You cannot spend 1 hour with him without being with your stomach hurting pain because you are laughing all the time. um, he lives with me, so I see him every single day. Sometimes if I'm in a bad mood, could be a little bit annoying that he makes fun of everything, but in the most of time it's funny and it's fun be with him. And if I like to stay with him, in touch with him, of course, he is my friend, and I'd love to be with him like for long time, for long years, and travel with him. It can get really fun too, since I don't know, he can see things that you do not uh, notice, and he always not only jokes, it's not stupid things that he says, it's smart jokes and things like that. Yeah, I think it's that.
Okay, thank you. Right, that's it for part 2. Now we
Okay.
can move on to part 3.
Yeah.
So in part 2, you described a person in your life with a good sense of humor. Now in this part, I want to ask you some questions that are related to this topic. Do you
Okay.
think having a sense of humor is important?
Of course, mainly with the world nowadays, as we see, it's important that you are not too stressed, and sense of humor can relax you and people around you.
Do you like movies or TV shows that make you laugh?
Yeah, it's my favorite kind of programs and TV shows and movies. I feel that they, as I said, relax me and don't make me, don't drive me crazy with all the things that happen daily.
Do you have one favorite show that you watch?
Oh, let me think. I think it's a kind of stupid, but make me laugh uh, every day, always when I watch. That is Two and a Half Men.
What is the difference between comedy on TV and comedy in books?
Oh, um, I don't really know. I never thought about it. Um, I think when in books it's harder to make comedy, since you cannot see pictures. I think the images in TV shows can help with the comedy, can help make the telespectator laugh. So I think it's harder to write a good comedy than to present a good comedy in a TV show.
So which one do you personally prefer? Comedy on TV or in books?
I think I suppose I've never read a comedy in a book, so I just can say that I like TV shows.
Can humor be translated from one language to another?
Sorry, say again.
Can humor be translated from one language to another?
Depends on which language, but I don't think like a good comedy in Portuguese from Brazil can be translated. We can see here in Ireland that it's hard to make our own jokes that we do in Brazil in English here because we don't have the same vocabulary and the same meaning for the words.
Are there jokes in your language that sound different in another language?
I think sometimes jokes in Portuguese, in Brazilian Portuguese, could be something rude or not polite. I don't know, or something that you never would say in English.
Do you think it's a good idea to explain jokes?
It's not the goal of a joke, but if you have to, if someone is misunderstood or something like that, you have to explain. But it's not a good idea. It's not what the jokes it's made of. It's made true.
Okay, thank you. This is the end of your test now. All right. So you can sit back and relax for a second. I will need a minute or two to add up your overall score, and then I'll be right back with you, and then we can talk about your feedback. All right?
Okay, thank you.
Great. I'll be back in a second.
Speaking course. This course is made up of 5 offline speaking videos in which you will learn all the necessary tips and techniques to take the IELTS speaking test with a high score.
Tell me about your family. Do you
In addition to that, you will have access to useful grammar and vocabulary resources. Once you finish your course, you will have 1 online mock test of speaking, along with comprehensive feedback under the same exam conditions.
Interesting question. A very
Join us to become our next successful candidate.
Great. So let's see how you did. Right.
Okay.
Before I want to talk about your criteria that you're going to be judged on, I want to give you a little bit of a general idea of each of the parts and what it's all about, right? So as you heard before, part 1 is more personal questions. So there is no need to go into too much detail because the answers are supposed to be rather short, 3 or 4 sentences maybe, depending on how long they are. I think some of your answers were maybe even a little bit too short. You might just add like 1 or 2 sentences to have, a nice and like a middle kind of length in your answers there, right? Not too long, not too short, just about 3, 4 sentences. And then part 2 is all about talking at length, right? So you have your 2 minutes that want to be covered, and then you have all your bullet points that you see on the cue card, right? So and this part is all about time management pretty much, right? So because you should keep talking until the examiner interrupts you and says, well, this is your 2 minutes. Now we can go on with part 3. So you stop pretty much, I think it was like 10 seconds before this like 2 minutes. So just as a hint, try to keep talking until, you're interrupted to know that your 2 minutes are over. And then part 3 is all about coherence, right? Your answers are longer than in part 1. And you should elaborate on your topic a little bit. You should develop it and connect your ideas pretty much to show that you can, keep talking and speak at length. Also, I think in part 3, your answers were a little bit too short. You could go on a little bit longer and, talk a bit more about, what the question asked for. I can give you some tips on how to go on with that, and I'll talk about that in your fluency and coherence in a second, right? Okay, so now we can move on to your criteria, as I said. You have your fluency and coherence there, then comes your lexical resource, which is your vocabulary, then your grammatical range and accuracy, and lastly, your pronunciation. So we're going to start with your fluency and coherence. And I think generally you have quite a, good command of English actually, because you know how to talk. I think you just need to adapt it a little bit more to the IELTS structure that we have here, right? So especially in part 3, I think your answers, as I said, were a little bit too short. You should try to keep going a little bit longer, right? I know it's sometimes difficult, especially when it's more of a general answer, but there are different ways that you can come up with more things to say, just to give you a few examples. You can always give more details about whatever you're talking about, right? So for example, when you're talking about your favorite TV show, just give an example of, I don't know, something that made you laugh in that show, or when you watched it last, or if you ever showed it to a friend and they found it funny or not. Things like that, to give more examples to show that you can keep going with your answer, right? Or you can always give more examples. That especially goes for part 2, because sometimes, you're asked to tell a story about a trip or whatever. And in this case, you can always give more examples about what happened or who said what, or, things like that, to keep going with your answer a little bit, to stretch it a little bit longer, right? And then also, sometimes people forget, in IELTS, you don't have to tell the truth. You can just lie about whatever. Nobody cares about the truth. Just keep going with something where you can show off your vocabulary maybe, and so on, right? And then another thing is, you can go off topic in your IELTS, right? You don't have to stick to the same topic. You can go somewhere else, as long as you reference the question somehow, show what you know about that one, and be like, well, actually, I know more about whatever is maybe a little bit related to that, whatever, right? So as long as you make a good transition from one topic to another, you can go off topic to talk about something that you're maybe more comfortable with, and so on, right? So, those are just some things to maybe keep in mind. And that could also help to reduce this little bit of hesitation that you still have here and there, because I think most of the time you are not really looking for words, but more for looking for content, looking for things to say. And that's why you had some pauses and some shorter answers here and there, right? So I think that's definitely something that you can look into, maybe like watch some more videos. You still have, a lot of time to practice and to maybe try to work on that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And what is also very important in your fluency is your connectives, right? You did use quite a few, you had things like, as I said, because, it depends on, since, this and that. Just as a general hint, you can try to mix that even more. Use some different linking words instead of and, because, but all the time. You can say, as, however, besides, things like that. There are tons of words out there that you probably heard of before. Just be very conscious about them and try to work them into your sentences to boost your fluency even more, right? All right. That was a lot of talk about your fluency. I gave you a 5 for that today. And now we can move on to your lexical resource. Okay, yeah, so I think, as I said before, you have a good idea of what words to use in what case. You had some idiomatic language that you used in the correct way, used them in the correct, spaces for your whatever it was appropriate for, right? Because that's also something that people sometimes, they try to bring in idiomatic expressions because they know them, but they don't know how to use them correctly. So, whenever you do that, be sure to make to use them in the correct way, because otherwise they're not going to help you, right?
Yeah.
And then also something that is very important in your vocabulary, which you did sometimes, was paraphrasing, right? So avoiding repetition and finding different words with the same meaning. For example, you said huge instead of big one time, or said images instead of pictures, or I suppose instead of I think. That was great. Definitely keep that up, because that's something that can always boost your vocabulary. That shows that you have a range, that you know how to avoid repetition, because you have different words that you can use in in 2 sentences. Okay, so for your lexical resource, I gave you a 6 today. And now we can move on to your grammar and accuracy. Generally, you did use some, some nice complex structures. You had some relative clauses in there, some conditional clauses, a few compound sentences. And you also used a range of tenses, which is also very important, right? Because it's not just about sentence structure, but also about tenses, and if you know how to use them correctly, right? I think sometimes in your tenses, you still mix them up a little bit, because maybe you're looking for ideas, and then you don't remember what tense you were talking in, and then you mix them up. So be very aware that you stick to the same tense in your answer, right? So listen very closely to what tense the question asks for, and then take that and try to stick to the same one throughout your answer.
Okay.
And then a few typical things that a lot of people struggle with when it comes to their grammar, especially when they're nervous and that sometimes get lost in the process, are your little things. Like, for example, your third person S, which you probably know about, is he, she, it needs an S at the end of the verb. For example, you said, it make me laugh. It makes me laugh, right?
Yeah.
Same goes for your plural S, that sometimes people forget about. When you have a noun in your plural, it needs an S at the end of the noun, right? And then also with your pronouns, sometimes to mix them up a little bit. For example, when you're talking about your friend and you said, I was laughing or something, and then you use the word we, but you were talking about yourself, right? So be very sure that you have the correct pronouns for each person that you're talking about. Okay. However, I think you have a good idea of how to use some more complex sentences in your answers. You can boost that even more to practice just a little bit more, and I think then you're gonna have it. And that's why I gave you a 6 in your grammar and accuracy. And lastly, your pronunciation. I think generally I didn't have any trouble understanding what you were saying. I definitely, you have a clear pronunciation. I think what you could do even more is your intonation, which is also important in your IELTS. So it's pretty much this melody that you have when you're talking about this like flow of speech that is also very closely related to your fluency, right? Because when you have a lot of hesitation, your intonation is not really there because your sentences break off in the middle and then you don't know how to go on, right? So that's very typically related somehow. So I think, as long as you work on those together and then try to have some more, some stronger intonation in your sentences, you should be fine there, right? So for your pronunciation, I also gave you a 6 today. Okay. That would put you at an overall 6 in your test today. Do you have any questions?
No, I think it was pretty clear. Yeah, I think I was, even if I know that it's not a real test, you get nervous.
Yes, I understand.
At all. I hate tests.
I understand.
I think it's more that I have to control my emotions, my nervousness, than that I don't know how to do something. And
Yes.
I think, I don't know, I have a blank as well. So
yeah, I definitely get that. But that's why I think it's always a good idea to have these mock tests that you know what the situation is going to be like, and then you can prepare yourself for that and try to, not have your nerves take over with the whole thing, right?
yeah.
Okay, great. So was the test useful for you?
Yeah, definitely, yes. I think I will keep practicing. I'm trying to study now. I'm back to Ireland, so I'm working a lot, but I'm trying to practice. And I probably will get take another test before I do my real IELTS. Yeah.
Sure, I think that's definitely a good idea to see where you stand then. Okay,
Yeah.
right. So would you mind if we share this video on our YouTube channel?
No, of course not. You can, of course.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Right, so if there's nothing else for today, we can say goodbye. I wish you best of luck with your practice and everything, and have a great rest of your day.
Okay, thank you so much. Bye-bye.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Silver and VIP. This package is comprised of the offline educational videos for the 4 skills, including listening, reading, writing, and speaking. In these videos, you will learn all the necessary techniques that you will need to apply for the IELTS exam. Apart from the educational videos, you will have full access to enormous resources to practice the strategies that you learn. Once you finish your course, You will have 2 and 4 online mock tests of speaking, along with comprehensive feedback under the same conditions in Silver and VIP courses, respectively. Also, you can send us your writings to be checked out and receive comprehensive feedback on those. You will also have 60 3-level British-based podcasts produced by the Academy, not only to help you improve your listening, but also to enhance your vocabulary range and pronunciation. In addition to all the mentioned resources, you will be provided with useful grammar and collocation files to get your target score with a better level of knowledge. Join us and become our next successful candidate.